Too many people in our culture are running around operating from ideologies that aren't founded in principle. And when their philosophy fails to stand up to the task of operating in the real world, instead of taking stock and admitting that when the rubber hits the road, the wheels fall off. There's a lot of people calling themselves Marxists at the moment. But quick search for the Communist Manifesto on YouTube will reveal that the only people who are interested in it are bougie children. Literal bourgeoisie children. It's a childish rebellion against their fathers and mothers. Identity-driven ideologues. Okay? We can't still be saying real communism has never been tried in this era. They don't realize that they're actually playing into the hands of the worst fascists that have ever walked the face of the earth. They want the same things. It's a myth. The idea of so-called capitalists, when in reality, anyone is a capitalist who wants to be paid for their work, especially if they are operating as a self-employed person. You are a capitalist. If you write a song and you want to sell it, you're a capitalist. The problem is not capitalism. It has never been capitalism. I don't use the word capitalism usually. I prefer the term agorism. It doesn't come with the baggage. Agorism means the marketplace, operating in the marketplace. If you want to make something and sell it, you're an agorist. The means of production have been completely decentralized. If you're creative, you can use the phone in your hand to make your content, record your song, edit your video, put it on social media. If people like it, they'll give you money. You filthy capitalist. I haven't made much from my creative endeavors. I haven't really tried because I was brought up in this framework of capitalism being the enemy. It never was. The problem is people who attack the market, the people who try and centralize profits, people who displace workers by moving manufacturing overseas to exploit cheaper workers. The reason Marxism persists is because there is a ring of truth to some of the things in the manifesto. And they're going to linger. But the problem is that a lot of our leaders are Marxist. People who've never been productive in their lives. Career politicians who believe in centralizing and regulating and destroying independent entrepreneurial endeavors. People like Daniel Andrews. So if you value human creativity, you must, by very nature of the beast, be a capitalist. And you can use the word agorism. I do. It's a much better idea. The problem is not capitalism. It's the tycoons. It's the monopolists. It's the scale. It's the scale. And thanks to inflation, millionaire is not a dirty word anymore. If you own a decent chunk of property, you're probably a millionaire thanks to rampant inflation. But how is that made possible? Well, inflation becomes necessary due to the massive expansion of government. The massive expansion of government. If you've seen Topher's video on the dirty truth about taxes, the actual tax rate, when you take into account all the hidden taxes in your daily exchange, in a country like Australia, even several years ago, was something like 55%. And what are we paying for? Bloated government. We're paying for the expansion. It's not the recipients of welfare that are the problem. It's the giant bureaucracy that manages welfare that's the problem. Every welfare recipient receives less than the government spends on each recipient. Someone on welfare gets about 17 grand a year. So do the service providers who cover that person. And then there's the bureaucrats who manage those service providers and the politicians that manage them. So you get 17 grand, but the government spends nearly 50 grand. It's the same in healthcare. It's the same in every sector of government. The rampant expansion of government is very much a Marxist, socialist problem. And the fascists love it. Because thanks to the two teams, we have the lefty side of Labour in this country that expands the government side. And then along comes the so-called liberal conservatives who outsource it all. The Labour Party supports the unions that build the roads, and then the Conservative Party turfs the management over to a private interest, charging you a toll in violation of our constitution for a road that was effectively taxpayer funded. They call it user pays. It's a joke. They're both feeding at the trough, the same trough, and one hand washes the other. It's a beautiful system. So if you're on a team, you're part of the problem. Now be a good capitalist, make something of value, and people will reward you. Or they won't. That's the risk you take. That's the market. And if your philosophy fails, then it's time to reassess and admit maybe you made a mistake. That's all I got to say. Informed Dissent signing off.